Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing is
so some readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by a literary agent who has worked across many different parts of publishing and was shortlisted for the British Book Awards Literary Agent of the Year in 2023. It's Abi Fellows. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
No, such a pleasure. Let's jump right in. I'd love to hear a bit about you and your career. So am I right in thinking that your first job in publishing was as a bookseller at Blackwell's?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was actually working in the cafe in Blackwell's. And the manager of the bookshop quickly realised that I was a massive book reader. I was always talking to his staff about what they were reading. And one day he said, I think you're in the wrong bit of the shop. So as soon as I graduated, I moved over to the bookshop and worked there for a bit over a year, I think. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then, so was it always your goal to work with books or in publishing?
I dabbled with the idea of journalism for a bit, actually. When I was in my last year of uni, I did a bit of work experience at the Big Issue and they were so short-staffed, I ended up writing a lot for them. And I did some work experience at the Independent as well, but my first impression was that it wasn't really for me. I liked the writing, but I didn't like the environment, the sort of pressure of it. Not that agenting isn't pressurized at times, but yeah, I think it was always going to be writing or books for me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So from what I saw online, you were at Blackwell's in 2001. What was then the kind of path to you becoming a literary agent?
I had so many sort of serendipitous moments, really. None of it was planned. So I was supposed to be moving to London. I was at Bristol for my undergrad. And I had planned to move to London to do a master's, but I was working. So I took this bookshop job for a year, in theory, to save money, but that didn't really happen. And I think about 2 months before the end of that, the Faber sales rep. So I'd built a really good relationship with the Faber sales rep because I just loved their books, and she knew I would read any proof kind of immediately. And she said to me that she was going on mat leave and that they wanted to talk to me. They wanted me to apply for her job. Which was, just incredible. So I had this whole kind of, what shall I do? Shall I defer my master's? Which I did. So I worked for Faber for a year and I was their sales rep. I think they call them account managers now, for all of the southwest of England. So I was basically driving around selling Faber books into bookshops. And then once that year was up, I moved to London to do my master's and I went back to Blackwell's. So I then worked for Blackwell's for about 18 months. And was just sort of trying to put the feelers out. I didn't know about agenting. I think like a lot of people, I really wanted to be an editor. I think that's the job that people have heard of. And I was really lucky through Faber. I met a couple of agents and I had a very inspiring conversation with Claire Conville, who kind of just sat me down and said, what do you want to do? And said she thought I'd make a cracking agent and to sort of consider that as well. So I sent my CV out to a lot of agents and kind of got my first agenting job through that. It was just a kind of right place, right time moment where someone had a vacancy. So it was all a little bit, serendipitous is the word, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like your first two roles, you basically were doing such a good job that someone said to you, oh, you should do this other role. And then you moved up into that.
Yeah, that's really nice. I think it's just, you don't really know what the options are. And I think you get an idea of what a role is like. And Claire and a couple of other people said, agenting is like, you obviously love to read, you like to talk about books, but you've got a bit of that salesperson energy as well. So you would get to edit as an agent, but you also get to do the kind of pitchy, smoozy bit that you like to do. So that sounded perfect.
Okay. And then, am I right in thinking that then you did some time as a literary scout as well?
I did, yeah. I left the first agenting role I was in when I had my first child, and I went to scouting with the formidable, wonderful Ros Ramsey. Really just a brilliant way to kind of juggle everything as a new mum, and offered, Ros offered me flexibility before people were doing that, and remote working before that was a thing. So it was brilliant for me. And when I then decided to come back to agenting, it meant that I had this brilliant address book, had a really good list of contacts from scouting. So I did that for about 8 years.
I think that's literary scouting might be one of the most unsung roles within publishing.
Completely.
It always amuses me, like you said, most agents didn't know what a literary agent was when they got into publishing.
Yeah.
But I feel like nobody knows what a literary scout is. They are not praised enough. Just for everyone listening, tell us a bit more about what a literary scout does and what their role is in the system.
I mean, they work extraordinarily hard and they get virtually no credit for things. Literary scouts are employed by publishers overseas, and also some of them work with TV and film production companies. And their role really is sort of scouting the UK market. UK scouts, they're talking to editors and agents here, and they're finding out what their really hot books are for the next year or so. And then they're reading them and they're reporting about them to their clients. And really what it means is that, so for example, if I have a book in the UK that UK editors are getting really excited about, the scout will tell their publishers in Germany, France, Japan, wherever, and hopefully give them a sort of heads up to acquire rights in their territory before other people do. So they're reading a phenomenal amount, but also getting to know what works for their clients, so that they can matchmake.
It's a real sort of finger on the pulse kind of
completely
role.
Yeah, completely.
And it's there to kind of connect all these different areas together, basically, so that an agent, I mean, there are agents that do multiple territories, but they're essentially there so that you as an agent can focus on your territory, and that someone, it's in someone else's hands to promote that somewhere else. Okay, very cool. So then after that, you went back to agenting at the Good Literary Agency, and you were there for a few years, and then a couple of years ago you joined DHH.
That's right. Yeah, it'll be 2 years in September that I moved.
Okay, so you mentioned initially you wanted to be, you thought you wanted to be an editor.
Yeah.
Now that you know so much more about the industry, is there still an inkling inside of you that thinks you might want to be an editor, or is that all gone?
Not at all. No, I really, I love being an agent. I think it's the best job in the industry. I love editing. I'm actually editing today, which is it's just great to kind of carve out that time. And often agents are the first editor, but that's very different to what editors and publishing houses do. For me, the reason I wanted to return to agenting was that I just really missed being at the start of the process. And then also just kind of the best thing about being an agent is you're kind of across it all. So, you get to sit in on the publicity meetings and the marketing meetings, and you talk to the salespeople. So you get to kind of have your fingers in lots of pies, but you're also the first port of call for the author. So I think that's a really nice way for someone like me who I like a lot of variety in my work. So that suits me really, really well.
Yes. And you can't, there's definitely a correlation between editors becoming agents and not the other way around.
Yeah,
really.
True. That's why there's so many agents now, I think.
Yeah. Moving on to your list and the authors you work with, for everyone listening, what are the genres, what are the age groups that you represent?
My list is very, very, very broad. So I always say I don't do picture books, and that my list starts from sort of middle grade. But I have done a couple of picture books, so it's not entirely true. I'm a bit of a never say never, but primarily I do sort of middle grade and YA. And then adult, I do fiction and nonfiction. I don't go, I guess, kind of the very commercial end of the market, but I do really love like a rom-com, a book club book. I love literary fiction. I love doing nonfiction too. I've got some history, memoir. So it's really, really broad. I suppose the thing that sort of defined my list when I was first building it was that I was at the Good Agency. So I had a focus on authors from backgrounds who've traditionally been sort of marginalized by the industry. And I wanted to bring that ethos with me when I moved agencies. So that's still really at the core of what I'm doing, but it can manifest itself in crime or, all over. Yeah. I don't do fantasy or sci-fi. that's my kind of weak spot. I've just never really read massively in that genre, so I leave other people to do that really well, including my colleague Harry, who's brilliant at it. So yeah, it's pretty broad.
Okay, but you actually don't do fantasy and sci-fi, not like you don't do picture books.
No, I actually don't. And I was about to say I don't do horror, but I have just sold something that's coming out this year, which is kind of horror light. It's kind of horror for people who are a bit scared of horror. So, right, yeah. But I think
that's a growing genre, I think. Because horror is being coupled with so many different, other than just like cozy horror, which is somehow a thing, a contradictory thing, but a thing nonetheless. Yeah, it feels like horror is one of those genres that's really being bundled in with other genres.
Yeah, and I think particularly in like LGBTQ plus publishing, I think there's quite a lot of horror in that space. And I publish a lot of LGBTQ plus writers, but not the horror side of things. I just have to own my limitations. There's enough else to choose from.
Okay. On the DHH website, there is one more in your do nots category.
Is it cookery?
Even though it is cookery, yes.
Yeah.
And is that a definitely no, or are you about to confess you've just also published a cookery book?
No, there are a couple of people I've followed on Instagram and thought, oh, maybe. It's a quite different skill set, I think. And I don't. I mean, I'm sure if I got really excited, I could find the editors and work it out. But I think I've got enough on my plate, so I'll leave that to other people.
Okay. But the hard no's are sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Glad we cleared that up.
Yeah.
In terms of fiction, non-fiction, how evenly split is that on your list?
I think it's fairly, I'm just looking at my shelf, I think it's fairly 50-50, but in any given year, it varies. So during the pandemic, I really gravitated to nonfiction, partly because I was homeschooling my kids whilst having a full-time job, and it was more manageable to develop a proposal than it was to edit, a 350-page novel. So then once, the kids were back in school, I then sort of swung back the other way to fiction. But overall, I think it balances out about 50-50.
Okay. Is that all through submissions? Or I know that with nonfiction, it can be, it's much more common for agents to reach out to people to propose maybe writing something.
Yeah, I have a few people who again, that's probably a 50-50 split in terms of what's just sort of come to me and what I've gone after. So I do have a few clients who I was following on primarily Instagram, although I'm now getting quite into Substack. I'm losing quite a lot of time to that. A few people who I did the whole, have you thought of writing a book? Which is really exciting. And I love that development of a proposal with someone where you kind of go from, great social media posts to like, okay, but how do we turn this into a book? That's always really good fun.
Okay. What do you, when you're are you actively looking for a person to like fill a niche, or is it more like you find a person and you think, oh, this person, maybe we could write a really cool book about XYZ?
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
It depends. I think there are a couple of things where I really was looking for someone. A book I worked on a few years ago now called The Yoga Manifesto by Nadia Gilani. I was really conscious that like yoga has become this really expensive, really whitewashed, really sort of corporatized thing, which is not how it started. And then I sort of saw that Nadia was talking about exactly that. So we hooked up and I was talking. I've been going through sort of like divorce and separation and navigating co-parenting, and I really wanted to find someone who was talking about that and just kind of giving people a toolkit to like how you go about that. And I found this great guy on Instagram, and I thought surely he's got a book deal already, but happily he hadn't. He does now. So yeah, sometimes you just get wind of a conversation that's bubbling up, and think, and you know, there's other areas like I think sort of climate activism. I really wanted something in that space, but I also knew it was quite competitive, so it'd have to be the right thing and it would have to stand out. So yeah, it's a kind of combination. Sometimes it's sort of gut instinct, and other times it's people finding me as well.
Okay, right. And is that exclusively a non-fiction thing? Have you ever done that, or do people ever do that with fiction? Like you seek out someone and propose them writing a fiction novel?
No, it does happen. There's actually there's a playwright that I'm talking to about a novel, because I saw her play a little while ago and I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
And I just said, have you ever thought of writing long form fiction? And that's something she wants to explore, and something that editors do as well. Like I've had editors come to me and say they're looking for someone for a certain sort of plot. Do I have anyone on my books? So yeah, sometimes editors approach me with a pitch and ask if I've got anyone who might be a good fit for that, and that can be a really nice way for someone to get an in, because it's such a gamble writing a whole novel and not knowing whether it will sell.
Yeah, which I guess is one of the safer things in some ways about non-fiction, is that your proposal doesn't require you to have written the whole thing.
Yeah, and also you it's much easier if an editor says, I love this, but I want it to be more XYZ. It's much easier to make those changes and, get a deal.
Yeah, especially because you won't be as attached to any kind of non-fictional characters and stuff.
Yeah, true.
Before we head over to the desert island, I just want to ask, so it's currently June 2025. Are there any genres, settings, characters, or whatever it might be that you are particularly on the lookout for to add to your list at the moment?
Oh, I'm really in the market for a good rom-com, preferably a queer one, but it doesn't have to be, but just characters we haven't seen. It's been a little while since I've had a rom-com to sell. So yeah, that's on my top of my wish list at the moment. And also like for adult, but also for YA. But otherwise, and maybe a bit more crime. I haven't worked on crime for a little while, and I do a bit of sort of historical crime and the more literary end of crime. So it would be nice to have something new in that space as well.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Nice and specific. Are rom-coms, are they kind of doing very well at the moment, or is that more of a personal thing? You just fancy one?
It's a personal thing. I mean, I think the thing that everyone's chasing is romantasy, and it has been for a while. But as we've said, fantasy is not my thing. So I try not to be swept up in trends because they change so quickly anyway. So I just keep doing my thing. And I think there's always a place for a really good rom-com, especially with sort of more diverse characters as well. I think we still haven't seen enough of those. Yes.
And I mean, it seems unavoidable at this point that the saturation with romantasy. I receive a lot of publicity notes about and press releases about new just wall-to-wall romantasy authors all coming out, and I at a certain point I'm like, it has to be too much at a certain point, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that brings us to the point where I take away all of your things, put you on a boat and ship you off and ask you, if you were stranded on a desert island, Abi, with a single book, which book do you hope that it would be?
I'm going to try and persuade you to let me have a series, because I'm an agent and we always ask for more. Can I please take Armistead Maupin's Tales of the City? And then maybe just the sort of 9, 10, however many more follow-up books there are.
Well, it's not the Wheel of Time, so I guess it's not that many books.
Well, I was really struggling because I was trying to think of a really big book that would kind of keep me going. And I kept thinking about A Little Life, and then I just thought, what a devastating existence I'd have just rereading that for all eternity on my own, as much as I love it.
Yeah. Some people have taken really intense books before, and I thought, well, I mean, it's a brave choice, but I guess they want to feel something when they're alone on their own.
I suppose so, yeah.
But yeah, perhaps you could smuggle in the entire series concealed within your person somewhere.
Excellent.
A fun choice. So is that is that a series that you kind of grew up with, or is that a series that just, when you read it, it just really had a profound effect on you?
I think I read them when I first moved to London, so I was sort of in my early 20s, and I really hadn't read very many books with queer characters, which is mad. So sort of, you know, growing up as a bisexual, I didn't ever see representation in books, or very rarely. I was a big fan of, and still am a big fan of, Jeanette Winterson, but the books were sort of few and far between, you know, compared to now when we have so much. So that was just really exciting. And I ended up going to San Francisco just really to try and find Barbary Lane and stand by it. So, and I think it would be, I haven't reread them. I always read the new ones when they come back. But I think if I was stuck on a desert island, it would be really lovely to reread them. And I think it would be interesting to see how the characters look to me now, 20 plus years on, just how like my feelings towards them have changed over that time as well.
Yeah, and I guess society's feelings towards those kinds of things, because obviously, it's, like you say, it's very different now than it was back then.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it must be exciting then, to see this huge boom in like queer and like lesser known voices in publishing. Yeah,
it's amazing, but I'm really like struggle to keep up, and it's a lovely, lovely problem to have. But it used to be that I could kind of buy, this year's hot gay book, whereas now there are so many, I don't have enough holiday to kind of get through them all. But it's brilliant, and I'm thrilled to see all these writers emerging in that space.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like you say, a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Not enough time to read all of the new things. Next up, we are going to get into some bits about queries, cover letters, all the fun submission things. And that will all be available in the extended episode, which you can find at patreon.com/rightandwrong.
It's really, really successful. So try and tune out some of that negativity as well, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it was not that long ago that I remember everyone saying that no one was buying YA.
Yeah.
And here we are with Romantasy being like heavily steeped in YA.
Definitely.
As well as obviously new adult. But now there's lots of YA selling. So here we are.
Definitely.
The cycles are getting quicker and quicker, it feels like.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abi. That brings us to the end of the episode. It's been so fun chatting with you and learning all about your career and everything you've been up to in publishing and as an agent.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely to talk to you.
And for anyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Abi is doing, you can find her on Instagram at Abi Fellows. And of course, if you're interested in querying Abi or any of the team over at DHH, head over to dhhliteraryagency.com and you'll be able to find all of their bios as well as the very important submission guidelines. And finally, to support this podcast, like, follow and subscribe, join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes, and check out my other podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again to Abi, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Shout out time. One of my amazing patrons, Lee Foxton, is querying their debut novel. It's a family drama, commercial fiction along the lines of Jojo Moyes and David Nichols. Fingers crossed, I am rooting for you. Good luck.